Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society in general. I am Father George Ehusani, and I have with me in the studio once again today my friend, Professor Okey, Ikechukwu. You're welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Great. Welcome. You. I mean, is it called coincidence or what? I've just been reminded that for independence discussion of last year, that it was you I called.
Actually, yes.
What it means is that you have the answers to Nigeria's problem.
On the contrary.
I mean, how come that of all the people I invite, that it is the same you I called for independence last year and now? Anyway, what it means is that there is something that is asking me to call you, that you have some insights. 64 years of independence on October 1, 2024. Where is Nigeria going? Between last Independence Day, 2023 Independence Day, and 2024 Independence Day, Nigeria as a country seems to have gone down the drain a lot. We seem to have degenerated in many ways. People's fortunes have worsened in almost every index. The fortunes of people have worsened. Well, poor workers have had their salary increased by 110%, but apparently the minimum wage can only fill your tank once.
Not all cars.
Oh, not all cars. It cannot fill all cars. Now, so actually, people appear better off when they were earning minimum wage of 18,000. You remember? That's just a few years ago. When they were earning 18,000 minimum wage, it looks like life was better for them than 70,000 minimum wage. And we had the 2023 election with all the controversies, and there were things that happened and we say never again. Then recently we had election in Edo State. And from the report of Iaga and other observer groups, it's like it is worse than what we experienced than the last election. So, since you have insights as to where we are coming from, where we are going, and what's going on with Nigeria, where do we go from here?
Father, you're the one imputing insights to me. We can only share thoughts. So let me start and climb up. Minimum wage. 1981, I was on the national minimum wage, which was 100 naira.
100 naira.
100 naira, and it was a lot of money. It was a lot of money. So let's not talk minimum wage. The whole perception is that actually what is intended by the concept of minimum wage is a wage that allows you an acceptable level of living in an economy. So when you don't have that, you can arbitrarily call whatever you like minimum wage. What you mean is minimum pay packet from government as distinct from what can lead to survival. And
because minimum wage is supposed to be a living wage.
Indexed against all the other variables. But if you index this one, you're in trouble. If, for instance, I'm earning 50,000 and I've been spending 19,000 on transport, and the fuel price changes and now spending 33,000 on transport.
And you're earning 50,000.
My salary hasn't changed, but what I spend to go to work has quadrupled. So my expendable income has declined. Whether I like it or not, no matter how nice, how honest I am, I've drifted into poverty without committing any crime. So I thought we should put that in context. The other point, of course, yes, Nigeria is now 64. I would like to give ourselves a soft landing before I go to the hard points I need to make. If Nigeria is a man, he would be a grandfather.
Yes,
in 64. The conventional sense. A woman would be a grandmother. And it would be a shame if somebody of that age is still not walking properly, stumbling. But in the case of the life of a nation, it takes a longer time. Because the variables, it's not just you and your biology, it's human beings, psychological issues, physical, yes, all psycho-spiritual, and all of that together, psychosocial as well. Now, why am I saying this? If you look at independence, there was a lot of excitement, there were prospects, and the government actually took off with leaders who, to a very large extent, had a strong sense of social responsibility, for whom leadership was service in order to elevate their people materially and in terms of values.
And we can see that with what happened between 1960 and 1966.
66. That's why M.I. Opara could create a GRA in Umuahia and did not allocate a plot to himself or to anybody in government.
And the independent layout in
Enugu, nobody in government. It was service. That was leadership. Now the war came. A lot of things went wrong. Impunity became part of state policy. Now, what this has brought out is that the presumed initial level of maturity did not really sink down sufficiently. And so those who still had their demons, by the time impunity became state policy, where you could take over government by shooting somebody or making an announcement, where you could be, as Reverend Father Ehusani, you can be appointed
sole administrator of
any part of the planet. You get a boy of maybe 30, 35, you make him sole administrator of a state.
What are you saying?
He has 6.
The head of state was 31.
31. I'm only being nice because the River State governor then was 26. I just don't want to go that far.
Did a spiff or something?
Spiff, yes. It was about to, or was he? I think it was Ken who was a minister. He was a commissioner. So all of that also see the disconnect. Through this culture of impunity and government by self-proclamation, you created a new class of Nigerian elites. Namely, where anybody at all could hold position, and having held position, he assumes himself to be a leader. You see, there's that disconnect. Yes. Those who knew that leadership was service, being exemplary, that the word Your Excellency meant one who becomes a reference in so many respects.
He earned it.
He earns it. He tries to live it, because the day he steps down, that expression, Your Excellency, won't apply to him. But we moved on to a new terrain where we applied Your Excellency to people who in the normal course of events will not be allowed to fetch water where the Excellencies are washing hands. So they became the custodians and imperators of a new set of values. And so position and wealth created a new class of elite without the polish of the leaders people had always known.
And they destroyed education.
Education.
I mean, I remember the Ali must go riots and so on and so forth.
So all of that together. So what I'm leading up to is that these are things you also see in any developing nation that the maturity did not sink through. And those who were here to give us the maturity did not have enough time. Their tenure was truncated.
6 years.
6 years. And let's think about the truncation. It wasn't the Nigerian army that carried out the coup of 1966. It wasn't Igbos that carried out the coup of 1966. It was a young man, with all due respect to those who are excited about him, with a certain form of, if you like, political illiteracy, and I'll explain what I mean. You are a soldier. In the army, senior officers will not take instructions from their juniors. But you went genuinely concerned about our national interest, worried that people are taking kickbacks, believing that we need a change. The change you had in mind was to kill the existing leaders, and after killing them, you make an announcement. So he announced on radio that the government had taken over, and he then instructed the commanders in the various formations.
Who are his seniors?
Seniors.
He was only a major.
He was a major, not a lieutenant colonel, not a colonel, but he was issuing instructions to brigadiers general. So what kind of soldier is that? That's number one. Number two, those he went to shoot the leaders in the north with were northerners. Number three, after the shooting, people were dancing. Now, there was no understanding of state, public affairs and all of that, but that's not even the core value crisis. Now, when you go and shoot somebody to take over government, are you doing it as a Muslim, in which case the Quran taught you that you should just go and kill somebody and start answering His Excellency? Is it a Christian? As a Christian, you're doing it? Is it as a traditionalist? Is murder not an abomination? So what set of values allows you to kill another person and announce in plain personal comfort that you're now in charge? So that fact alone fueled a counter coup, which was again not a coup of the Nigerian army. It was a coup by angry members of the Nigerian army from a part of the country.
Who felt, yes.
They've killed our people, let's kill them back. And that damaged the military.
Completely. At
3 levels, Esprit de Corps disappeared. The next thing was the disturbance, distortion of the sequence of succession. Anybody you can be. That's why Ikechukwu said, I can't take instructions from my a junior officer. If he's not going to be Ogundikwe, the next person in line will be me. Ogundikwe ran away, as you knew. So all of that. So we have a damaged history. We have distorted succession and leadership recruitment experience. We have a replacement generation that had its tenure partly truncated, because if the army hadn't come, by 1979, Zeke, Awo, all of them would not have been coming to contest the election.
No,
they would have been our
been
elder statesmen. Zeke was 75, Awo was 70, Aminu Kano was in the same range. They would have left in the 60, around 69. Now they were detained. Their calling suspended. By the time they were coming back, it was the tenure of the Obola Iges, Okparas, that they were now trying to live out. So we have a backlog of an unfulfilled generation, 2 of them. That's why you still find that we have a problem knowing who to call a youth leader in Nigeria. You know, so bringing all of that together and now coming to 1960 to 2024. What we have is a nation whose history and the progressive deterioration of the elite sense of shame and responsibility has brought into the gutter.
What you have said now, I mean, I read an article recently that says that the Nigerian problem is a loss of the sense of honor.
Honor, personal dignity,
yes.
shame.
So, yes, that is linked to shame, loss of a sense of shame.
People cannot be embarrassed.
Yes.
That is where
because the kind of news I'm hearing about certain prominent names in Nigeria today about greed and graft and kleptomania and stealing and so on and so forth. 100 years ago, you'll be ostracized.
Not much. I think even 50 years.
Even 50 years ago.
Whose son is that?
Whose son is that? Whose daughter is that?
So don't they have shame? You and bring an unusual car home. It's your uncles that will say, if your father is not around, is your nearest uncle, come. What is this? Where did he come from?
And you find it difficult to find a woman to marry.
Marry what? When they don't know your source of income. Yes. The priest will raise issues.
Yes.
Today, unlike you, the priesthood will give him a seat in the front. I don't know if you saw the clip last 2 weeks in Enugu. Mba came to church as a member of the church, the state governor, and sat down, because when you come late to church, you should be too ashamed to disturb anybody who is there to worship.
And they said the pastor called him up.
He refused. The pastor knelt down and was, as he knelt down to beg him, the governor also knelt down. He said, please,
they're embarrassed.
Now, that tells you the quality of leadership at all levels, traditional, mostly religious. So when you find those who take leadership seriously, they are an absolute minority, and the job on them is much. Now, coming to Nigeria as it is today, it's easy to say that, oh, this government is hopeless, etc., etc. This is a matter that has developed onto its peak today. We don't have food because in the last 7 years, we'll be having refugees instead of farmers.
Now, before you continue, with your short analysis, do the remaining of our military adventurists that are still alive, the Obasanjos and the whatever, do they realize that their adventure into politics is what has led us into this? I mean, because you see, what we require, what we should be demanding now is that those of them that are alive should be apologizing to the nation for what they are actually their classmates. Many of those measures were the classmates.
The class of 66.
Yes.
Yeah. So no, it's a delicate situation. Why I say so is that they attempted a self-correction. They took over power by 1975.
Okay.
They said, no, this was not our intention. Most of you are stealing. They removed that government. Even Murtala, I understand, returned some money which he felt he shouldn't have, he didn't belong to him and all of that. So even institutionally and as military professionals, they attempted a self-correction. Not only that, they came on. What was the focus? Look at all the power stations we have in Nigeria today, as old as they are. Who put them in place? It was their government. So if you take, for instance, your Obasanjo thing, there were very robust national development initiatives.
Yeah, I agree with you that they did a number of good things. They didn't, I mean, people stole, they didn't know how to steal big money, right? But
they eventually learned.
But that whole military dictatorship is a form of corruption.
Yes.
It is prime corruption that has given birth to smaller forms of corruption. I mean, the whole, just as we can say, colonial exploitation is corruption. So military dictatorship is another kind of corruption, which, like you said, it's impunity.
You see, corruption is the distortion of values. The values of leadership recruitment were being followed through. Something broke into it, corrupted the process. So I agree in that sense. And that's also, if we take the concept of corruption broadly, we are busy in talking about people who took money. Whereas the question is, what kind of values
system? What kind of
system is running? You arrest a minister for embezzling 5 billion. The permanent secretary, the director of finance and accounts, Savicom office,
they were all part of it.
If you begin to query all of them, I tell you, corruption will disappear.
Yes.
But you isolate the
one person.
And you talk about approval, processing. You talk about inflated contract. Go to Savicom office, because the business of Savicom office is to confirm that this money is the correct amount being spent and is in the interest of Nigerians. By the time they all begin to answer questions instead of earning salaries, you'll be serious about it. That's even why you're dealing with this tangential notion of corruption. But to the point you're making about the military, that intervention was fundamentally disruptive. Actually unfortunate, because you see, you must also ask yourself with what level of knowledge and at what age did this thing
happen? What level of knowledge, with what experience?
That's it. So that's why when the younger generation, the millennials and Gen Zs will say today, oh, it's the older generation that damaged Nigeria. They're always shocked when I tell them no. It was Nigerian youth who damaged this country.
They were in their 20s and 30s.
On one occasion, the hall couldn't be brought down for 7 minutes. They were saying, how can you? I said, relax. We're in this. We're not living here for 2 hours. So when you finish shouting, you listen. I said, those who got us independence were youth. They shouted, yes.
Okay.
I said, those who without recourse to the Quran, to the Bible, to tradition, to decency, damaged this country by shooting their military colleagues and our leaders, were also Nigerian youth.
And they kept quiet. Then they will keep quiet.
I said the difference. Do you know the difference between the two sets of youth? The first set of youth had knowledge, understood global events, understood national interest and group interest. Because our Zik, they were fighting for their people, but they realized that this is within an umbrella called Nigeria. So they were also young. Knowledgeable youth versus ignorant youth driven by impunity. That's the difference. Therefore, those you're saying this, they have grown old now. You're looking at the age of their body. The same impetuous, impertinence, even if you like, is what you're going to. So all of you, and I said, all of you are young. You did NSAS. Everybody was excited. Are you aware you cannot govern Nigeria from a toll gate? Again, everyone was quiet. You raised an important issue. SARS is supposed to be an institution of state. It's become something that doesn't need to exist. It wasn't serving us well. You provided food. The thing was organized. But do you notice that on your menu included pizza? One wrap of which at that time was about 7,000, 8,000. And that's a pot of soup in Mushi for 4 days. And that the real Nigerians, the Nigerian youth, what you had at the toll gate was elite Nigerian youth. You all wore nice t-shirts. Nobody fought. When the food came, you didn't struggle because you knew it would get to you. The real Nigerian youth, when he sees food, he knows that he must rush or it won't get to him. So everyone was quiet. So wake up to the fact that there is a difference between elite youth that might be up to 2%, if you like, and live in cities, talk about internet penetration, followers on Facebook, and the real youth whose back are bent, walking all the time. That's one. Two, even among you who say you're Nigerian youth, elite youth, you mistake biological age for values or ideological age. All of you, let's say all of you are between 18 and 35, young biologically. The values you live with may place you in the generation of those who are in their late 80s who are killing Nigeria, for whom you're doing PA and carrying bag, for whom you're rigging elections. That I'm much older than all of you. If I contest the election and I want to rig, will anybody see me carrying ballot boxes?
It is you. It is your age.
You will accept my money. I'll give you 2,000 to vote for me. You vote and go. That means that for the 4 years, I've paid you at the rate of 500 naira per annum. Everybody in the whole.
Now, so what can we do? I mean, as we at this time talk about independence and so on and so forth, in the kind of mood we are in, very depressing mood, what can we do so that people growing up in this country, young people growing up in this country, can have some of the history we are discussing? because the young people are only seeing what is happening last year, this
That's
year,
all
next
they
year.
can relate to.
So, but then, if we are going to correct this, they need to know where we're coming from. They need to know what would have been a solid foundation laid between 1960 and 1966, the truncation of that, and how we got some rascals now and again, the repeated coups and so on and so forth. A country that does not know, a people that do not know where they are coming from, they can hardly not know. They
hardly know where they're going.
Can hardly know where they are going. So, what can we do at this stage? Is it through the formal school system or through programs like this? How can we help our people to have a sense of where we are coming from and to build up hope that perhaps we can make some detour to transform this country?
Well, at the level of the formal school system, yes, they've restored history.
But nobody to teach it.
Yes, because that's one. Two, at the level of what was the other point?
Programs like this.
Programs like this are very important. They will help for those it can reach, who will learn something and who likely where they apply some of it. Usually programs like this should target, if you can make 10% impact in terms of population, fantastic.
Because there will be multiply effect.
But most critically, leadership. We have a young generation that's looking at Tinubu, forgetting there are subnational governments that should be answerable to them.
Their local government chairman.
Beginning with the ward chairman,
yes,
the council chairman, the local government chairman, and the governor. We carry on as if they don't exist. Nigerians do not know that there's a governor today with the fuel palliative. The entire consignment from the federal government was sold off. Fertilizer for one of the states in the north was sold into Cameroon. Now, these are the people. Look, why did you elect a governor?
And a few days ago, I read that some big money meant for Mambila
power station.
Station. The entire money.
$6 billion, I think.
Taken by one person.
Yeah. So, well, it's in court. We don't know how that will pan out. But the point is, if this is happening, part of what needs to happen at this, beginning with this independence, is to wake Nigerians up to the fact that the federal government is not responsible for the bad road in your village.
Yes, because there's a local government.
A local government gets 150 million every month. Some months 120, some months 180, some months 200. Nothing happens. It doesn't occur to anybody that anything should happen. Is that kind of political education and, if you like, drill down that needs to take place? All this talk, there's poverty everywhere. But each governor, I'm a governor, every month I take about 1.8 billion naira as security vote. I don't account for it. Security is deteriorating.
But what kind of structure, legal framework allows that to happen? I mean, it's not accountable to anybody for such huge income. What kind of structure? That kind of structure is undesirable as far as I'm concerned.
No, it's not. It's very desirable if you have a band of looters.
Oh,
yes. They're on course. They are moving the nation forward. And that's why every year they review it further. You see, plunderers in positions of responsible leadership will always treat the public treasury
as personal,
as
private.
booty.
Oh, booty.
Just where something you
Booty.
meet a container on the road, you look left and right, you carry what you can. Unfortunately, that's what we are faced with. So with this independence, look, everybody, you and I, how much you would fill your tank before with 40-something thousand. Now it's over 70,000 to fill the tank. 79. Are you a drug pusher? The suffering is real. But we keep talking about the federal government. Yes, it's a policy decision that led to this suffering. If we begin to pick on the subnational governments, a difference will occur. A state governor to ban a bandit leader. Nothing has happened as we speak. And all these things, the details are benumbing.
And I mean, and then there are allegations against one person,
allegations.
Against one high-level officer after the other, and till today, Nigerians have not been told the 4 sponsors of terrorism that whose names were given to Nigeria.
During Buhari's time.
Yes, whose names were given to Nigeria.
It was to protect their human rights. That's what somebody could say in public. You see, when the public perception is that leadership does not act with a sense of responsibility, faith in the state disappears.
This is what has
So
happened.
wherever anybody is, he tries to make his own kill and run. If statements like this can be made, look at even banditry. Imagine that this sort of thing is happening in the southwest, right? In the 60s. And maybe we have all these things, and you say thieves are running you. I will ask you, are you not, whose son are you? Are you not ashamed of yourself? Imagine the reaction of a man like Samadu Bello.
Yes.
Okay. But you've come to talk about it instead of tell me what you did with them or how you dealt with them. We no longer have many leaders, because some are still good, who realize the value of affirming their manhood while on the job.
It's what somebody like a loss of a sense of shame, loss of a sense of honor, loss of so the people don't trust them, because one of the biggest problems now is that there is total mistrust in leadership, loss of
but
trust.
That's also because those in leadership positions are plebeians. There are people who have a sense of duty, and which brings them to leadership. When people see leadership as a source of income and a means of livelihood, they're in the wrong place. That's what we're facing in Nigeria today. Where public resources meant for service delivery are things, I'm now in charge, I'll carry as much as I can.
It's looting.
It is looting.
Like you said, it's a booty.
Booty of
That,
look,
like
this is my chance.
you conquer a territory. I mean, you
Carry
conquer a
people's
territory.
chicken, goats, children,
marry their wives.
So independence, could everybody looking at what's going on now, is the ideal time to say, oh, this government is terrible? Are the people not terrible?
No, I said that it used to be. I used to be very angry when I hear the statement, people get the kind of leadership
That
they
is
deserve.
a lie. Oh yeah, I see your point. I thought you were saying...
I used to get very angry.
Not anymore.
But now I'm beginning to look at my people and
Not
say,
anymore.
Your
You
own
brought this about.
conspiracy, your conspiracy in this whole affair, perhaps we deserve that description, that the people get the kind of leadership they deserve. I mean, it's sad, but...
Yeah, but that's the reality.
On this note, I'll bring this segment to an end. I've been speaking with Professor Okey, Ikechukwu. He is the Executive Director of the Development Specs Academy, and well-known name in Nigeria. I have brought him so that he can bring insights, his deep insights about the evolution of politics in Nigeria and how we can get better. On this note, I say, for 64 years of independence, well, for a human being that would have been an old man, but for a nation is young. So let's end on a positive note that, maybe by the time we are 70, we may begin to behave better. So thank you very much. And we need to discuss further in the second segment on our leadership recruitment processes in this country.
Well.
Thank you.
Thank you.